Hey guys, I am here at Colonial Williamsburg in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos on pretty much history and a bunch of other historical stuff on this. So this is actually going to be done in several different parts. I'm not going to do it in one video. It'd take way too long to do. So I hope you enjoy this as much as I am. Nice.
Typically what I like to do, I like to go for the shortest will. They did a big will, but it was this piece. So given the choice, the smallest amount of surface area to have a will would be quicker, would be easier. So I would lap this over here. That gives you that much surface area. But, you know, there's no hard and fast
we make things in the raw iron fairly regular, just because we have access to salvage materials from buildings or vehicles sometimes. Moving the metal is a lot like working with clay. So anything you can think of that, or anything you think of that we can do with clay, you can do in iron and steel. You just have to get it hot.
May I ask what you're making?
The whole red you see there is about 1,000 degrees.
What are you making?
making some hinges.
Okay.
Nice.
But it can be heated up to 25 to 600. We saw him welding earlier. So as it heats, it changes color. So what color is you see on that bar? Orange, yeah, red, yeah. What do you think? So it goes from red at the colder end, orange and kind of medium. What do you think is hotter? What is orange mixed with? Red and another color. Yellow. So the high end is yellow. Very good question. Right now, you can see a lot more time spent with a file or with a hacksaw. In this case, you're making a handle or a small hammer. Blacksmiths don't typically make handles for tools, but that's a tool that we're using, and it's not for their own tools. And yeah, exactly. It's better to make it yourself so it fits your hand.
Is 4 people, is this a typical size?
Well, so yes and no. 4 people is a fairly common number for working in a urban blacksmith shop. But this shop is actually set up for quite a lot more, about 3 or 4 times as many. Well,
over here.
so you have 4 different forges. You could have 1 person working at each of them, maybe an assistant at 1 or 2 of the forges swinging the sledgehammer, and twice as many at the workbenches. So the work this shop was doing in the 18th century was weapons repair. Muskets, swords, pistols. That was the main focus of this business. And if you think about a musket, you can look at some modern recreations in the crate there. Every surface on that tool is polished. So that has to go with the file. It's a machine. It's a small machine, so it has to be fitted together. So all of that is really cold work done volume, where you can get close to the metal. Check for distances. You're not racing against the clock like you are when the metal is hot. So the term strike while the iron is hot comes from that side of the work. But if you're striking while the iron is hot, you're not planning elevations too well, and you're not necessarily
You're not
looking-
fitting the hammer to your musket.
Oh yeah, exactly. So the basic parts of the forge, or the basic forms of the components of the forge. But things like screws, the threading needs to be cut in. Things like cocks or trigger guards, they need to be filed.
Trigger guards, trigger,
Right.
hammer, all
Sear,
of
etc.
those, all the small pieces.
Yep. Yeah, so they'll get the basic form under the hammer, but they'll be filed in finished shape. Now, the people that worked in this shop included a number of French gunsmiths. They were actually hired in secret in a contract arranged by Benjamin Franklin while he was ambassador to Paris. There were soldiers here cleaning firearms. There were skilled enslaved blacksmiths too, along with free journeyman smiths and some apprentices too, would make axes, tomahawks, spades, picks, other things that soldiers needed while on campaign. Because of course, war is not just a series of battles. Yeah, swords would be fixed here. So this is a copy of one made not too far away at Rappahannock Forge. The original was, this is a reproduction that we've made here. It's a cavalry saber. It's not quite finished. You can see I can move the guard, which shouldn't happen. But it's a copy of a copy of it. So the original sword that it's based off of is an example made at Rappahannock Forge outside Fredericksburg. Rappahannock, meanwhile, was copying an example made in New York by a loyalist swordsmith named Potter. So Potter's swords were very popular among British cavalry. Well, after some of those cavalry were captured, an example of a Potter's sword was sent to Rappahannock Forge to be there.
Mimic.
Mimic, yeah.
So you were mentioning screws before.
Mhm.
So when these houses were built, I mean, were the building materials made here, or were they shipped in from Europe?
Good question. Wood is going to be cut here. In fact, part of the reason the British are here is because we have such abundant timber. But the nails that you're holding your building together with are probably going to be made in Britain. Hinges too. You really only rely on local manufacture if you're asking for something custom made or you need something fixed. So, let's say the lock you put on your door. Well, that was probably made by an English locksmith. And because production costs are lower in England, labor is cheaper, and also because of specialization of labor, that also makes the end product cheaper. So even after the cost of transportation across the ocean and the merchant's own markup, you're going to get an English lock cheaper than a locally made one. But let's say you lose the key to that lock. You could send it back to the English locksmith that made it and have no lock on your door for a number of months, or you could get a new key made here. So that's really the sort of role local blacksmiths play. And during the Revolution, of course, we're no longer getting those imported goods, so we do have to compensate for local manufacturing. And to that end, this shop hired 8 boys who were nailers. They only made nails. And those nailers were working for the Commonwealth, so they were making nails for building hospitals, barracks, stables, ramparts, etc. But collectively, those boys at one point were putting out 25,000 nails a week. Now that sounds impressive, but if you break that down by the day, it's maybe 450 nails per boy per day. Point of comparison, we know from experience that an experienced nailer could produce 2,200 nails per day. So we reckon at that point those boys were at the very least inexperienced and probably relatively young. But of course, as they do the work more, they get more experience and more proficient. This is a military warehouse for the colony of Virginia. So this is a building that held all of our weapons and military supplies. So gunpowder,
cartridge pouches to hold that gunpowder, canteens, tents, blankets, again, anything you think a soldier would need, it was stored here, unless it was perishable, like food, water, and medicine. So those items will be stored for most of the 18th century. It is built by, there you go. It is built by the British Empire in 1715 and operates under that empire until 1775 with the outbreak of the War for Independence. So through that time, we're looking at mostly peace. And during peacetime, there's actually no military of Virginia. There's no army. So we need a place to put all that stuff an army uses, so that when we do need the army, we've got it.
I need this for the front yard.
What's that?
I said I need this for the front yard.
Yeah, this is what's called a 3-pounder, or light 3-pounder. It's a cannon that's developed by the British Royal Artillery to use in America. So it's very, very light, very small, and you can move it very quickly. That's its real advantage. Doesn't do a ton of damage against buildings or walls, but it's very good anti-personnel.
I'm looking at your the rig there. That doesn't look light enough for a horse. So who exactly is carrying that?
That would have been a horse.
You're gonna fit a horse in there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. That looks narrow for a horse. But
Well, that was the idea. It is a small horse.
So this
I
is
guess that a mule or
cannon,
something.
quote unquote.
What's that?
This is the little. pole
She's asking, what
contraption
does
is
you
meant to
call
fire this.
It's not meant to. That's actually an added bonus. So this is what's called the limber.
Okay.
So when we're transporting a cannon from place to place, it's going to be transported by horse. Which means all the ammunition boxes, the equipment, the tools, the cleaning supplies, any extra gear, they go on the limber. And so the limber and the cannon hook up to make 4 wheels. And then,
The point
Oh, yeah.
What is this giant looking gun? Is that like?
well, that's what I'm getting.
Okay,
So,
okay.
no worries. So as we get to that battlefield, we're going to unlimber. So we're going to take the horse off. We're going to take all the equipment off, place it on the cannon, get all the tools out to the soldiers to fire the cannon. And then, normally the limber would be useless at this point. We're not transporting it from place to place. But this British Royal Artillery officer, a man named Captain Congreve, he designs this whole contraption so that when we're on the battlefield, we can actually remove these arms and flip the limber up like it is right now. And then take this gun here, which is called a wall gun, and place it through the porthole you see right here.
Oh,
Also
wow.
notice that there's a layer of iron on the front. So it's iron plated so that 2 soldiers can load and fire this gun to cover the soldiers who are loading and firing the cannon. But that's not going to be the only use of this wall gun. The Congreve designed barrel and cannon are designed for the American Revolution to use in America, but the wall gun has existed since really the mid-1700s. And the wall gun's main purpose is to be a cannon that can go anywhere. The wall gun could be placed along a wall, a fort, a castle in Europe, a ship, really anywhere you need it to go. So we have some evidence that the British light infantry, so troops that are moving very quickly ahead of the main force, would bring a few wall guns with them. So you see them being used
That
pretty
really
much
is a
everywhere.
cannon.
Yeah, basically it is. It's about 3 times the size of a regular musket. To be crewed by about 2 soldiers.
So what caliber is the wall gun?
It's closer to about 98 caliber.
Fashionable fabric. But we are the people that take that fashionable fabric and actually turn it into something that you can use. So we are milliners, meaning we'll make your accessories. And then we're also trained as mantua makers, which is a separate trade, technically speaking, but sometimes practiced by the same person if she served 2 apprenticeships and learned twice the skill set. Your mantua maker would be your dressmaker. Then there are also tailors in town as well who are doing gentlemen's suits. So between those 3 trades, we'll dress an entire animal with head to toe and everything that you need. But for the most part, that's going to be custom work. So you would buy your fabric from a shop here in town, and then you would bring it to us, tell us what you wanted, and then we would use your body standing right in front of us to make the size and the shape that you needed. It also means that since you're standing there, you get to help to decide on the style and whether you like the neckline or whether the sleeves are comfy. So you get to have a lot of control over your wardrobe making and design just because you're right there overseeing the process. At the moment, we're working on some doll clothes. We like to use all of our scraps, don't like to throw anything out, so when we have leftover pieces from normal people-sized clothes, we will use them to make things like doll clothes or pinstations or little work bags. In the 18th century, we know milliners were often making doll clothes and selling them along with dolls that were imported from England out of their shop. They would sell toys and games, puzzles, playing cards, and musical instruments, and sheet music, and books and magazines. So millinery shops were, in addition to selling your fashionable accessories, also selling all of your fashionable kind of lifestyle items as well. So whatever you wanted to surround yourself with to show off to other people the fact that you have the thing that everybody's talking about, and everybody wants, and everybody's displaying in their house. So it's kind of a little catch-all shop for anything that's considered trendy and desirable at the moment.
We're talking about trendy, there's something I need to ask about.
Sure.
The knots that are hung down here that kind of look like hair.
Yep. That is actually where the phrase flax and hair, because that's where it comes from. Flax is actually the same plant that produces the flax seeds that you eat in salad today, or sometimes grind up and put in smoothies. Flax is it's a stalk-like plant, and it's going to grow to be about 2 feet tall. But we don't want the outer part of that plant because it's very hard. So what we do is actually rot it away. If you soak it in water, it'll eventually fall away from the fibrous insides. And the insides are what give you those very hairy kind of fibers that you see there that are kind of wound together. What you're looking at are essentially the xylem and phloem parts of the plant. So the part that takes the water and the minerals in the soil, draws it up to the top of the stalk and then back down, and kind of gives nutrients to the plant as a whole. So they're very, very strong, and that also means that they retain that ability to conduct moisture when we spin them and then weave them into fabric. So most of your underclothing in the 18th century, the clothing that touches your body, is going to be made out of linen, which comes from flax, because it retains that ability to pull moisture off of your body and help to evaporate it away from your skin. It makes it feel drier and cooler and cleaner, and it keeps your outer clothing cleaner as well, because it's kind of a lining or barrier layer between your clothing and then your body itself. So that's why linen is so popular in the summertime, because it does such a good job of keeping the body cool and dry.
Okay. I was wondering if that was being used for like doll hair.
Actually, sometimes it is. We have a couple of little dolls here that are actually one of our joiners made for us. And they're copies of original dolls that are in our museum collection, little fashion dolls. And they actually have flax hair. The original has flax hair, so we'll probably be giving them some flax hair. That seems to be the most common thing. It was just kind of wound around on the original, so we might just do the same thing with these little guys. But our engraver painted them for us based on that original one, so we were oogling over them and had to bring them down to show them off a little today before we give them some clothes.
Some lucky little girls.
Yeah. They'll probably sit in our shop for a while.
The yarn, right? Is that yarn up there, or is it?
Yep, that's wool yarns that have been dyed by our weavers here in the shop.
So vibrant.
Yeah, it's surprising how bright you can get some of the colors with natural, plant-based dyes. You then can combine different dyes to get
Can you
different color
name off a
shades.
couple of like what plants
Yeah,
make which of the colors?
Yeah, so the starting from the left, you see the brown,
Uh-huh.
often coming from black walnut. So that's actually the only local dye, the one that we can kind of source without having to go through a middleman.
I can give you a bunch of that if you want.
Oh, yeah. Then the purple next to it comes from the heart of a logwood tree, a South American tree. The blue comes from indigo, so that's pretty local. You see a lot of that grown in South Carolina and even in Georgia. Unfortunately, that has crossed the Atlantic Ocean twice before we can use it, because that's our job as a colony. We provide raw materials, they get sent back to England. England sends them into things that they sell back to us and back to the other colonies and other countries around the globe. So our job is to be the supplier of raw materials. Our job is to be a market, but we don't do the manufacturing and finishing in between, because that's where the money gets made. So our job as a colony is to sit on either side of that equation, and indigo is one of those things that kind of falls prey to the globalization of colonial empires. The yellow in the middle comes from either fustic or turmeric. The orange often comes from the root of the madder plant. And then the red, all the way to the right, is the one thing that doesn't come from the plant dye. That actually comes from the cochineal needle. It's the shell of a little bug. And it gets crushed up and powdered, and then it produces that really bright red that they actually still use in lipstick. And as like if you've ever seen red dye,
Okay, so I
carmine,
can make it
but
better.
it's FDA approved and still
What was the name of the
today. A cochineal.
Huh. And what exactly does indigo come from?
Indigo comes from plant. It is an indigo plant.
Okay. See the color.
Nice.
I didn't realize it was a plant.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a
that's
plant.
cool. All right. So
It has
I
a
can go
scientific name that I can't remember, but it is indigo. Is it on the bottle or did they just call it? Yeah, it's just indigo.
Yeah.
But then you might have noticed that there's one color up there that I didn't mention.
Red
Green.
one? Oh, green.
Because nature doesn't actually produce green, which seems kind of funny because we have, green leaves and green grass.
Blues and yellow.
Yep, blue and yellow together, and that's exactly what leaves are. Leaves are actually blue, and it's the sunlight filtering through the blue in the leaves that actually creates the effect of green. So our eye is perceiving something that is not actually there, so we essentially do the same thing. It'll get dyed, the fabric of the yarn will get dyed yellow, and then it'll get over-dyed with that indigo to create leaves.
I was gonna say, so light, is it easier to make lighter greens or darker greens?
It depends on what you're using for the yellow dye, and it depends on how many times it's dipped for the indigo. Because indigo is one of the only dyes that you actually, it's the number of times that it's dipped and then removed and oxidized that'll create a deeper and deeper hue. Whereas with the other shades, it's the longer you leave it
in
exposed
the
in the dye pot that will create the more saturated color.
Interesting.
That's really cool.
Thank you.